Should I hold on to my house as an investment for my future?
What should we do to have money that we're putting aside?
Welcome to Financial Issues, where we align reality with truth. Conservative talk radio you can count on. Financial issues that you need to know.
We face a disintegrating economy, a weakened defense, and an energy policy based on the sharing of scarcity. We will simply apply to government the common sense that we all use in our daily lives.
Now, here's your host, Dan Celia.
My name's Dan Celia. It's great to be here this morning. Well, we've got some interesting economic news that came out. Of course, the job numbers came out. But let me tell you, folks, the job numbers are insignificant compared to some of the other job-like data that came out and that will be coming out tomorrow, but ahead of tomorrow's number. I think there's some very interesting stats that you're not going to hear anywhere else but here, because I am likely to be the only one that is going to talk about it. Now, I had three of the financial news networks running, all three, which I usually do. I usually do as I am preparing for the program. But I usually only have the volume on one of them. Well, this morning I had the volume on all three of them, which was, well, it was hard. I only have 2 ears. I had 3 volumes going. But no, really, it was very confusing. But I managed to, and I was listening. So my ears were tuned in to anybody that was going to talk about anything that I'm about to talk about in the labor market, which I think is probably incredibly important. There's also, which I'm not going to talk about this morning, I'm going to probably write some sort of paper on it or an article on it at best on another study that came out. I don't know if it's a study. I think it's more of an opinion piece that came out that I'll talk about it through an institute that I very seldom disagree with. But I think that the article that was written is totally missing the point, and I'll talk about that as well probably tomorrow as I finish writing about it. But a lot of economic news coming out. So let me go to this clip. I want you to hear what President Obama said yesterday in relationship to, well, a couple things. But go ahead, Devin, play that.
Mindful of the jobs that are supported by trade between our two countries, we discussed ways to partner more, including creating a clean energy partnership that creates jobs and combats climate change effectively. And as I head into the G20, I shared my view that here in Europe and around the world, we've got to stay focused on creating jobs and growth. That's going to be critically important, not only for our economies, but also to maintain stability in many of our democracies that are under severe stress at this point.
Did he say stay focused on creating jobs, or was I imagining things? Stay focused as if that has been the focus? Remember, we got a Keystone Pipeline that doesn't look like it's going to get approved yet this year. Stay focused on jobs? As a matter of fact, the Beige Book report came out yesterday, and the Federal Reserve's Beige Book says the labor market has improved somewhat, but not as good as it should be. The jobless rate still is struggling. Weekly jobless claims down 9,000. Well, that ought to make everybody happy. It's at 323, and in and of itself, as a headline, it's a pretty decent number. But wait a minute. Wait a minute. We also got out yesterday a report that said the number of planned layoffs in the U.S. by U.S. employers has jumped from Employers jumped 33.8% in August from 50,462 in July. That has increased 33%. This is planned layoffs by U.S. employers. Now, I'm sorry, folks, but when you have a planned layoff that has increased by 33%, I hate to break it to the president, but jobs has never been the focus of this president or this administration, and it still isn't. Second quarter productivity numbers came out. As well today, before I go to that, private sector jobs, according to ADP, came out this morning at 176,000 private sector jobs. That's not the government number that's coming out tomorrow. 176,000 jobs. And there are people this morning trying to put a good face on that. And by the way, 176 private sector jobs is pathetic. Let me just remind everybody of this, because we've got an awful lot of new viewers and new listeners. At the start of this president's presidency, at the start of this administration, we had seen a loss. There were 8.7 million jobs lost. 8.7 million jobs lost. Today, we have gained 6.7 million. There are 2 million more people unemployed today than there were at the beginning of this recession. And the jobs that were lost as a result of the recession is still short by 2 million in picking up new jobs, short 2 million jobs. And this is a market, a time when the president says that our focus must be on jobs, or worse yet, he said stay on jobs. What's stay on? It's never been on. This is an administration that still maintains over 70% of the oil and natural gas wells off the coast in the Gulf of Mexico and other federal properties still remain shut down. No permits have been issued to start pumping again. Thankfully, we have a private sector that has picked up the slack. This is a president that says he's still focused on jobs. And by the way, we've lost over $1 billion in revenues to the government as a result of that. Last time I checked, we needed money. And again, U.S. employers say that the amount of jobs that they're going to lay off has jumped 33%. Then we get second quarter productivity up 2.3%. Another wonderful headline for the president. Another wonderful headline for his campaign trail. Wait a minute. Not so fast. By the way, 866-300-9298. We're going to get to phones early. 866-300-9298. Productivity rises 2.3% in April, from April to June. Up sharply from the first read of 0.9%. According to the Department of Labor. Another place there ought to be an investigation. But, of course, we can't even get through the investigation of the IRS. Economists surveyed said that they had forecasted a 1.9% increase, and output of goods and services rose 3.7% instead of a 2.6% initially estimated. Yet, the increase in hours worked, pay attention to this. You're not going to hear it anywhere else, particularly in mainstream media. Pay attention. The increase in hours worked was revised downward from 1.7% to 1.4%. Wait a minute, it gets worse. Keep in mind now, productivity up 2.3%. Hours worked revised downward. Unit labor cost showed zero change. Well, that's good, right? No inflation. Wait a minute. It was supposed to rise 1.4%, got zero. Increase in hourly wages of American workers was unchanged. while manufacturing productivity and productivity in general for the second quarter in the U.S. rose. What is going on? Let me just say something, folks. How much longer can we see the median income and wages of the American worker continue to decrease? For the last month? No. The last 6 months? No. The last year? No. Well, just in the last couple years. The last 5 years. And hours worked per week are still not 40 hours. They're still at 34 and some change hours per week, and going down next month again in all likelihood as a result of the new normal of a work week of 30 hours per week. How much longer are American workers going to continue to work like they're working for the good of the balance sheets of the companies in which they're working for without any increases in wages, while all the while we're seeing inflation in fuel and food, and our wages haven't gone up and we're at levels of 1970s? And there are people that are talking about this economy getting better. This report today and what the president said yesterday in Sweden is shameful. It's shameful. And I don't know how long it's going to be before the American worker begins to revolt over the fact that they're working like dogs because they're scared to death of losing their job in this economy. Productivity doing better than ever with a smaller workforce, working fewer hours and making less money. What is this? Some sort of Marxist regime we're living in where you got to work for the state? It's pathetic. It's pathetic. I don't know what else to say about it. And everybody out there is putting a good face on this, folks. Come on. And look, you don't have to be a PhD in economics to see this. This is good news for the markets because it's showing the economy trending right where it needs to trend for the Fed not to do its taper in September this month. That's what it's doing right now. The markets were up yesterday. Dow was up 96. It's pretty much flatlined right now, but this is all good news for the markets because it looks like taper is going to get put off. Because let me tell you something. Yes, the Fed is looking at the private sector job numbers, but they're looking at it as a trend. They're not looking at one specific number. They're certainly not going to look at 176,000 or 200,000 as being good. They're not going to look at it that way. It would have to be a huge number one way or another to have an impact. I don't know. I get frustrated, as you can tell, and get so passionate about this. Not just because of the numbers. It's because of the ideology in Washington getting in the way of everybody's common sense. And we've got every economist and mainstream media outlet in the country buying into this new normal. The new normal stinks. Financial Issues. We'll be right back.
As parents, protecting our children's hearts is a great concern. We do all we can to shelter our sons